Renowned pianist urged blind black girl to perform casually. Yet she possessed an extraordinary talent that would eternally alter the existence of all present. How adorable. Approach, dear. Perform something for our amusement. Victoria Hartwell's saccharine tone resounded through the opulent chamber of the Metropolitan Art Society, prompting subdued chuckles from the attendees at Chicago's premier philanthropic gathering. Amelia Johnson, merely 14, remained still next to the majestic Steinway that commanded the room center. Her delicate fingers clutched the white staff firmly as an uneasy hush enveloped the space. The teen had come with her state school director, who had secured 2 gratis passes to the yearly benefit soiree for artistic accessibility initiatives. Victoria smoothed her couture gown and beamed at the crowd of tycoons, reviewers, and benefactors. At 38, she ranked among the premier interpreters of Chopin in the era, boasting global sellouts and lucrative deals. To her, this misplaced youth epitomized all flaws in mandated inclusivity at refined occasions. No need for timidity, darling, Victoria pressed, her words laced with patronization. I'm certain our benevolent patrons would adore witnessing our commitment to diversity. Perhaps, happy birthday. Surely everyone grasps that, even you. Mrs. Catherine Morrison, chair of the sponsoring organization, whispered about impropriety to her aide, yet refrained from stepping in. After all, Victoria Hartwell was the night's luminary, accountable for amassing vast sums for the entity. Amelia inhaled deeply, her grip on the staff intensifying. None there realized she dedicated 10 hours daily to rehearsing on a lone synthesizer in the parish cellar. None knew that from age 4, she could replicate full orchestras after a single listen. And crucially, none suspected that right then, amid views of her as a bothersome intrusion, she was internalizing each syllable, each inflection, each shade of conceit permeating the atmosphere. Truthfully, Amelia uttered, her steady voice slicing the murmur of asides. I favor Rachmaninoff. Victoria emitted a sincere chortle. Rachmaninoff? Indeed. And which composition might you attempt, child? Victoria's grin was poised to solidify when Amelia answered with a poise reserved for those harboring a potent secret untimely revealed. Piano Concerto No. 2 in C minor. Though it might be overly sophisticated for this gathering. The ensuing quiet was so dense it muffled the antique clock's ticks in the foyer. Something in the girl's stance, the serene assurance of her speech, alerted some patrons they were on the cusp of beholding far more than mere embarrassment. If this narrative of surmounting bias enthralls you, remember to join the channel to learn how an instant of derision would morph into the most profound rebuke the Chicago artistic aristocracy would ever endure. Victoria sensed mounting annoyance at the girl's unforeseen retort. Rachmaninoff Concerto No. 2, she echoed, her tone shedding its feigned warmth. Child, you're addressing folks who underwrite symphonies. Maybe you don't comprehend your setting. The crowd assented in murmurs. Margaret Whitfield, successor to a finance dynasty and the group's primary backer, commented audibly enough to resonate. Such impudence. This cohort needs etiquette lessons. Amelia stayed immobile, yet a subtle shift occurred in her staff hold. Her digits ceased quivering. Instead, they eased, akin to a maestro's pre-symphony. Victoria, interjected Dr. Michael Chen, leader of the Boston Philharmonic on a visit. We ought to proceed with the scheduled agenda. No, no, Victoria interposed, now visibly irked by the apparent defiance. Amelia here seems to challenge our guest's refinement. It's only just she exhibit this professed musical prowess. Victoria, Dr. Chen persisted, his brow creased as if detecting what others missed. Maybe we should advance the primary lineup. No, no, Victoria interrupted, now evidently vexed by the seeming rebellion. Young Amelia here appears to doubt our patron's elegance. I believe it's fair she showcase this musical dominance she's suggesting. Victoria approached the instrument and struck the opening tones with overstated, nearly dramatic flourishes. Observe, Amelia, this work demands not merely skill but sentimental depth. Something requiring years to cultivate. Certain you wish to bear yourself thus? What Victoria overlooked was that Amelia comprehended every facet of that rendition. For 8 years, since losing her vision in a vehicular mishap that also claimed her parents, she had committed every spare instant to melody, not as pastime or innate aptitude, but necessity. It was her sole means to navigate anguish words couldn't touch. Her Aunt Dorothy, employed as a janitor at the Civic Music School, had procured scarce audios and braille notations. Amelia had committed hundreds of works to memory, analyzing not just pitches, but historic renditions, local adaptations, and effective layers of each creator. Dr. Hartwell, Amelia remarked, intentionally misnaming. You rendered the initial tones in E-flat major. Rachmaninoff's Concerto No. 2 is in C minor. A frigid hush blanketed the room. Victoria felt heat surge to her cheeks. She had altered the key deliberately to probe if the girl truly knew the work, but hadn't anticipated public correction. It was deliberate, obviously, Victoria fabricated, her tone losing its refined sheen. I was assessing her fundamental auditory sense. I understand, Amelia responded with a steadiness that unsettled some attendees. Then you surely know Rachmaninoff penned this concerto amid profound melancholy after his debut symphony's flop. Each section mirrors a phase in combating despair. Thus, accurate performance needs more than expertise. It demands familiarity with genuine obscurity. The assertion struck Victoria like a blow. Her own take on the piece had always been mechanically impeccable yet frigid, missing the sentimental richness true aficionados noted but never voiced. Very well, Victoria said, her facade of supremacy fracturing. Since you're so versed in theory, why not demonstrate practically? Or prefer to dazzle with your rote learning you can't uphold in execution? Catherine Morrison murmured urgently to her aide. This is turning mortifying. Perhaps we intervene. But Victoria was resolute to disgrace that girl definitively. Actually, she proceeded with a vicious grin. I'll heighten the intrigue. If you can render at least the opening movement adequately, I'll personally ensure your institution gets a $10,000 gift. The crowd applauded the stake. It was substantial for a state school. But Victoria appended, her words oozing venom, when you falter, and you will, I want you to openly confess you sought spotlight with shallow wisdom you can't maintain practically. Accept the dare. Dr. Chen scowled, as if sensing what others couldn't yet fathom. In the fifth row, Dorothy Thompson instantly recognized her niece's inflection. It matched the one before tackling impossible puzzles or unveiling secret preparations. I accept, Amelia stated plainly. But I'd like a minor adjustment to the terms. Victoria chortled disdainfully. Adjustment? Dear, you're unfit to bargain. Instead of $10,000 for my school if I triumph, Amelia declared, her voice commanding full attention. How about $50,000 if I succeed in performing not merely the opening but the full concerto from recall? A wave of astonishment swept the crowd. Victoria paused briefly. $50,000 was notable even for her. And if I stumble, Amelia added, I vow never to attend such occasions again. Victoria beamed, believing she'd found the ideal chance to banish that bothersome girl eternally. Agreed. But I demand observers. Dr. Chen, will you consent to adjudicate this display? What those advantaged folks couldn't perceive was that every belittling term, every compassionate gaze, every bid to diminish her was igniting something far mightier than outrage. It was rousing the resilience born from adversity morphed into aim. And Amelia was set to reveal that underrating one who has forfeited all is the riskiest blunder possible. Dr. Chen assented. Clearly uneasy with the scenario. Fine. As neutral arbiter, I verify the conditions. Rachmaninoff's complete concerto from memory for $50,000 to the young lady's institution if she prevails, or her pledge never to surface at cultural gatherings again if she stumbles. Victoria grinned with malicious contentment. $50,000 was a sum she could frivolously expend on adornment, but for a public institution, it would revolutionize. Naturally, the girl would flop. It was improbable for someone her age sans formal classical guidance to execute one of piano's most intricate works. "I require a few moments to ready," Amelia stated calmly. "Certainly, dear," Victoria retorted with sham benevolence. "Water? Perhaps time to rethink this folly." Amelia retreated toward the hall's rear, a more secluded spot. Unnoticed, Dorothy Thompson rose discreetly from the fifth row and followed. "Aunt Dorothy," Amelia murmured upon her aunt's approach. "My child," Dorothy whispered, embracing her niece. "Certain about this? It's immense strain, even for you." Dorothy knew Amelia's capabilities better than any. As conservatory custodian for 15 years, she'd observed countless sessions and workshops. She'd heard instructors discuss prodigies, seen young talent auditions, and never encountered anyone matching her niece's innate musical flair. "She has no clue what's impending," Amelia replied, her fingers gesturing as if playing aerial keys. "Auntie, recall Professor Martinez?" Dorothy grinned. "Of course. Professor Martinez was the fabled piano tutor at the conservatory, now retired, whom Dorothy met early in her tenure. Upon discovering Amelia's exceptional gift, she'd requested the elder maestro an improbable boon, clandestine lessons for a sightless girl from the outskirts. "He still visits Tuesdays and Thursdays to utilize the grand in room 12, Dorothy noted. "He called you the most promising pupil in his 50-year vocation." What the elite crowd ignored was that for 5 years, Amelia had absorbed direct guidance from one of the nation's premier pianists. Professor Martinez, recipient of 3 global honors and ex-soloist with the National Symphony, had been so struck by Amelia's raw ability that he'd violated his retirement vow. "That lady thinks she's degrading a novice girl," Amelia proceeded, her tone bearing quiet assurance. "In reality, she's contesting someone who's spent 5 years gearing precisely for this juncture." Professor Martinez had been more than tutor to Amelia. He'd been guide, confidant, and chiefly, one who trusted her potential when the world viewed her as mere handicapped child. Under his mentorship, she'd not only mastered classical methods, she'd surpassed them. "Remember the Ashkenazi recital recording you fetched of the same concerto?" Amelia queried. Dorothy nodded. 3 years prior, she'd acquired a rare audio of one of the most acclaimed renditions of Rachmaninoff's Concerto No. 2. Amelia had absorbed it obsessively, dissecting every subtlety, every artistic choice, every sonic pause. "I analyzed that rendition for months." But Professor Martinez imparted something even Ashkenazi ignored then. Rachmaninoff inscribed personal annotations in his original manuscript's margins, cues for dynamics and expression unpublished officially. Professor Martinez had accessed these originals during 1970s Moscow studies. He'd shared these enigmas solely with Amelia, discerning in her not just technical prowess, but the emotional ripeness essential for authentic Rachmaninoff interpretation. Back in the main chamber, Victoria glanced at her timepiece with staged impatience. How much longer for this girl? Maybe she's grasping the enormity of her error. Margaret Whitfield chuckled softly. "Frankly, Victoria, you're exceedingly tolerant. Any earnest instructor would have halted the spectacle ages ago." Dr. Chen, meanwhile, observed Amelia and her aunt's exchange with rising intrigue. Something in those women's bearing, an intimacy and poise suggesting shared wisdom. The aunt appeared unconcerned about Amelia's impossible task. She seemed, indeed, proud. "Dorothy," Amelia whispered. "Recall Professor Martinez's words on life-altering performances?" Dorothy smiled, recollecting the elder's adage. "There are technical renditions, and renditions that graze the spirit. The former dazzle critics. The latter metamorphose people. This won't be merely technically flawless," Amelia continued. "It'll be a tutorial in how genuine talent transcends hue, class, or impairment. And crucially, it'll demonstrate that belittling based on bias is the costliest error possible." During her covert preparation years, Amelia had cultivated not only exceptional technical finesse, but profound musical psychology grasp. She knew precisely how to employ music for messages beyond words. Professor Martinez taught that each Rachmaninoff note bears specific sentiment, Amelia said, her fingers gesturing unconsciously. He composed this concerto from deep melancholy. Each section depicts a stage back to light. What Victoria and her privileged patrons misunderstood was Amelia's edge none possessed. She'd truly lived that journey. The forfeiture, despair, gradual hope rebuild, and ultimate adversity triumph. "It's time," Dorothy announced, noting Victoria's impatient motions. Amelia nodded, inhaling deeply. "When I commence playing, that woman will realize her career's gravest blunder. But upon conclusion, she'll grasp she's witnessed something she'll never replicate." The pair returned to the hall's center where Victoria awaited with poorly concealed exasperation. At last, Victoria muttered. "Hope you've utilized this to rethink your imprudent choice." Amelia neared the piano, her hands locating keys with familiarity from hundreds of secret plays. But this instance differed. This wasn't for Professor Martinez in vacant conservatory. This was to reshape an artistic elite's views who'd spent the evening underrating her. "One final query pre-start," Amelia said, slightly turning toward the crowd. "Has any of you rebuilt your essence after losing all in one instant?" The following silence differed from prior's. There was intensity in Amelia's voice, authority from real experience making some realize they were about to witness far beyond musical demo. Victoria felt apprehension's chill. Something in the girl's posture, hands hovering over keys, hinted the evening wouldn't follow her humiliating script. But retreat was impossible. The hall awaited, her repute hinging on exposing that inconvenient girl's inadequacy publicly. What those advantaged folks couldn't see was every belittling word, every contemptuous gaze, every diminishment bid fueling something mightier than outrage. It was silent resilience from years of adversity turned musical purpose, and who was about to use every Rachmaninoff note to show true talent knows no barriers from those fearing others' greatness. Amelia positioned her hands on the Steinway keys, and something remarkable transpired in the chamber. The initial chord emerging from the instrument made Victoria Hartwell involuntarily retreat. It wasn't merely the notes she'd played minutes prior. It was those notes transmuted by a spirit knowing darkness and finding light via music. Rachmaninoff's opening phrases flowed from Amelia's fingers as if dialoguing across centuries with the composer. Each segment bore her experience's weight, brutal loss denial at 8, anger at a world viewing her as inferior pre-knowing her, and finally transformative acceptance shaping her sacred music bond. "My lord," Dr. Chen whispered, leaning forward. In his 40-year career, he'd never heard such emotional profundity. Victoria's legs quivered. The girl's technique wasn't flawless, it surpassed her own. Passages she played with focused effort flowed from Amelia's fingers like crystalline water, natural as breath. Margaret Whitfield, who'd mocked moments ago, now had tears tracing her made-up cheeks. Amelia's music wasn't technically perfect, it was transformative, touching forgotten soul places. How possible? Catherine Morrison murmured to her aide, voice quaking with emotion. The answer manifested in the music. Amelia wasn't merely playing the concerto. She retold her story through it. The opening became a child's narrative losing everything instantly. The second, a teen's fury navigating a dismissive world. Victoria watched, paralyzed, as her interpretation was dismantled and rebuilt infinitely more potently. Every decade's made musical choice, correct technically but empty emotionally, was exposed by the girl's raw genius. "Victoria," Dr. Chen whispered, "ah heavy. This girl is among the greatest natural gifts I've witnessed." Victoria felt something shatter internally. Not just pride, the entire superiority edifice she'd built lifelong. That blind black suburb girl wasn't better than her. She exceeded any pianist Victoria knew. As Amelia reached the third movement, something magical occurred. The acceptance representing section gained near spiritual dimension. Amelia no longer played for the crowd. She played through them, linking each to universal loss and rebirth experience. The hall was utterly silent save transcendent music from the piano. People there to flaunt status now confronted something genuine, too potent to ignore or diminish. "She memorized our dialogue," Victoria murmured, realization striking like thunder. Every condescending tone, every contempt word. She knew her actions. In the fifth row, Dorothy Thompson smiled through tears. She'd watched Amelia practice till hands bled, study Braille scores till dawn, memorize deceased masters' interpretations. Now, the world witnessed what she'd always known. As Amelia hit the second movement's complex cadence, a pianist breaker, her fingers danced with ease, making Dr. Chen lean incredulously. This wasn't secret amateur skill. It was adversity-forged musical genius. Victoria scanned the chamber, seeing her destruction mirrored in artistic elite faces. Every person now knew she tried crushing a musical genius from pure bias. In 15 minutes, Amelia had obliterated Victoria's decades-built image. "Mrs. Hartwell," Dr. Chen approached, expression mixing disappointment and scorn. "We have much to discuss about your future orchestra contracts." Margaret Whitfield phoned, and Victoria instinctively knew her humiliation news would circulate cultural elite pre-leaving the building. Amelia neared Victoria, extending her hand. "Thank you for the performance chance, Mrs. Hartwell. Sometimes we need our music confrontation to grasp our true selves." Victoria shook the girl's hand with quaking fingers. Finally realizing she'd witnessed not only extraordinary rendition but her complete social ruin. As Amelia garnered compliments from the entire attending elite, Victoria Hartwell, who tried using privilege to crush talent, learned music, like justice, balances life's scales its way. In that chamber where bias masked as custom once ruled, new reality shaped, proving true excellence knows no hue, class, or limits from those fearing others' greatness. 6 months post that legendary Metropolitan Art Society night, Amelia Johnson traversed Juilliard's prestigious halls as full scholarship enrollee. At 15, she was history's youngest full-funding recipient. Dr. Chen, witnessing her crushing rendition, personally ensured top educational chances. "Talent like this emerges once per generation," he reiterated to doubters investing in a suburb girl. Margaret Whitfield, once mocking, now personally funded her studies and founded an initiative spotting overlooked musical gifts in underprivileged areas. "That girl taught privilege sans purpose is mere squander," she admitted in Chicago Tribune interview. While Amelia thrived, Victoria Hartwell endured contrasting fate. Major orchestra deals cancelled sequentially. The video of Amelia's rendition and preceding cruel humiliation attempt viralized, garnering millions views and scathing prejudice comments. Victoria attempted European tour, but the tale pursued her. Critics penned reviews questioning not just technique, but humanity. "Hartwell hits correct notes, but her music lacks the soul we saw in that young prodigy," noted influential Guardian reviewer. Catherine Morrison resigned post-public revelation of permitting charity events as discrimination stages. Directors clarified associating institution image with bias unacceptable. 2 years on, Amelia released debut album, decade's top-selling classical. Victoria gave community school private lessons. Her global career irrevocably ruined by her conceit. The disparity wasn't mere professional success, but talent usage choice. Amelia employed music to elevate others, founding underprivileged educational programs. Victoria had used hers for self-elevation till learning prejudice-built heights always collapse. As Amelia told young bias-facing students, finest retribution isn't destroying herders, but building grander than they envision. Ever seen talent wasted from prejudice? How reacted to injustice masked as custom? Share experiences in comments and join channel for more tales proving true merit always outshines hollow privilege.